Welcome everyone to Iris Island. Today we have a very special guest. We have Raksha from UNICEF. So she's a climate and energy specialist. She's done many projects related to that area. Also, she's a specialist related to climate and youth and also health. So today we're going to have a very special dynamic. So Raksha is going to have a really short presentation. It's going to show us some things about UNICEF and her work. And then we are going to talk a little bit about that presentation. And also, we're going to be open to all the questions in the public. So I don't know if I have anything else to say. Raksha, you have the ground.
Thank you so much, Sergio. Hello, everyone. I'm Rakshya Thapa, as Sergio introduced, and I'm from UNICEF. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here sharing the platform with you. So really looking forward to a very interactive and a dynamic conversation with you on energy. Let me first share my screen so that I can pull up my presentation. And Sergio, if you could just help me with just an indication if it comes through.
Sure thing. We can see your screen now. Just you can put it in full screen mode.
Okay.
Great. So now can you do the same thing we did before?
Does it work now?
Wait. Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay, and is this screen blocking or not? It's okay, right? You can see the full screen.
Yeah, we can see the full screen.
Okay.
And you can start now.
Okay, thank you so very much. And just an introduction. So I will be talking about how young people can contribute in and the critical role that young people can play in accelerating energy access as well as clean energy transition in the sectors that are most critical to them. Like you can see at the bottom of the screen, I have good health, I have education, water and well-being, and climate, and the list increases as we know. On 8th of October, this year, 2 weeks ago, literally, the UN Human Rights Council adopted a landmark resolution recognizing for the first time that having a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment is a human right. On the same day, the Council also adopted a resolution establishing a special rapporteur on the promotion and protection of human rights in the context of climate change. This has been a landmark achievement in international environmental governance and cooperation. The global recognition of the right constitutes a powerful signal in the acknowledgement of climate and environmental crisis. And it's a result of decades-long efforts by civil society, by communities, and by children and young people like yourself. The explicit recognition of the right to a healthy environment has real advantages, including, but of course not limited to, raising the profile and importance of environmental protection and providing a basis for the enactment of stronger environmental laws. The recognition really supports countries and member states in developing stronger and more coherent environmental protection laws and policies, empowers right holders and environmental advocates in particular. The resolution typically it corroborates the idea that the right to a healthy environment should be universally protected. And most importantly, the right provides an additional tool to hold state and non-state actors accountable for failing to take action to address the triple environmental crisis of climate change, pollution, and nature loss, as has been oftentimes highlighted by UN Secretary General. So what I would like to say is that critically, the devastating results of climate change, environmental degradation, and unsustainable energy practices are not discriminating across borders, as we have all seen. They are disrupting lives and livelihoods, regardless of income, regardless of race, regardless of the region where we live in. But it is by far the poorest and the most vulnerable countries and people that are suffering the most. And this is an inherent injustice. UNICEF's recent report on climate risk index for children that was launched a couple of weeks ago, last month, found that some of the countries least responsible for the climate crisis are also the ones that are warming the fastest and are facing the most severe of students, especially those that are coming from marginalized communities or low-income communities, where perhaps the school meal is the only nutritious and healthy meal that they can have in a day. Also, in areas with poor electricity and internet connectivity, we have seen that the digital divide and the education divide has further widened. So in this case, decentralized energy solutions, for example, in places in schools and in healthcare facilities which are not connected to the grid or which do not have reliable access to power, the electricity connection can really facilitate the digital connectivity. And in the past 1 year, during the peak of COVID-19 pandemic, when 170 million students and several of you, or maybe all of you, have been out of your classrooms for a full school year, you have experienced and we have witnessed how digital connectivity has come to the rescue of many of these students. And this, in part, has been facilitated because of electricity access, which is important to power devices, which is important to facilitate internet connections. Also, similarly for healthcare facilities, reliable and sustainable energy is really important to power vital life-saving medical devices. Also, it has been, brought to the spotlight because of COVID, where reliable electricity is needed to power ventilators, for oxygenators, for lab operations, for diagnostics, and also for staff quarters, so that it helps in staff retention. So I will just stop here because it's almost like preaching to the converted, and also you all know these benefits firsthand. But I just wanted to just underscore that electricity access, reliable energy access, is really critical to some of the most important social sectors where children and young people depend upon the most. Now, moving on. Where sustainable energy access is lacking or is compromised, oftentimes it's the children, young people, and women who bear the biggest brunt. And as we can see from the slide, air pollution owing to unsustainable energy practices is a major contributing factor in the deaths of newborn children. For example, in 2019 alone, air pollution contributed to the deaths of 500,000 children. And every year, millions of people all over the world, they die because of energy poverty. Similarly, globally, over 1 billion population, they rely on healthcare facilities without any access to electricity. And 60% of them, they are located in sub-Saharan Africa. Also, still, in this day and age, 200 million children, they go to primary schools without any electricity. And in sub-Saharan Africa alone, only 30% of primary schools have access to electricity. And let's also recall that this is also a region with some of the lowest levels of literacy rates, as well as human capital index. And in the 21st century, these figures that you see on the screen and beyond are simply unacceptable. So despite the importance of reliable and affordable energy access, electricity and energy access is often an overlooked building block of quality healthcare, of quality education services, and also for accessing safe and clean water for drinking and for hygiene purposes. In all this, decentralized, renewable energy solutions, such as solar, for example, are really becoming promising options to power and to ensure adequate service delivery in these social sectors for children and for young people, especially with the dramatic cost reductions that we have been witnessing, and as well as innovations in technology and delivery models that we have been seeing in the recent past. Now, in all this, what is UNICEF doing? UNICEF is accelerating its commitment to scale up renewable energy access in healthcare facilities, in schools, for water and sanitation for children and young people. We have been actively supporting energy access, renewable energy access programs in primary healthcare facilities in over 35 countries. And this includes availability of data and evidence on energy demand and market analysis. UNICEF has also successfully provided clean and safe drinking water to children and their families in over 45 countries through our global solar water pumping program. Energy is even more critical when it comes to conflict and humanitarian setting to ensure continuity of basic services, including for life-saving medical procedures, for water supply, to store vaccines safely, for lighting, and more. For example, in Gaza Strip, UNICEF is reaching out to over 12% of the entire population with clean and safe water through our solar seawater desalination plant project. And you can also see the picture on the bottom right hand. This is the solar desalination plant that UNICEF is supported with in the Gaza Strip. And similarly, in Yemen, in Jordan, in South Sudan, in Bangladesh, UNICEF is also investing in solar energy in schools, in learning centers for children and for young people who are in these displacement or humanitarian setting. And as a trusted partner, we've also been working very closely with the governments in order to support the cross-sectoral linkages of energy, clean energy access with line ministries such as health, such as education, water, and sanitation. Now, we truly believe that sustainable energy transition is an intergenerational issue, and young people can really play a very crucial role. So the benefits of clean energy that you all know about and that we just discussed a couple of slides ago is really half the equation. The other half is how young people can support acceleration of clean energy access and clean energy transition in the sectors that are closest to them. So we all know that that young people are highly motivated, like yourself, and you are inspired to act. Millions of children and young people like yourself around the world have been demanding action. According to a recent survey, a U-Report poll that we commissioned online, 9 out of 10 respondents, young people, out of almost 300,000 respondents in 21 countries, they mentioned that they believe it is their responsibility to tackle climate change and environmental degradation issues. We have seen that when given a voice, when given platforms to influence change and the right capacities and technologies, children and young people have excellent innovative ideas that work in their local context and going beyond. And all over the world, young people are doing what they can, what you can, standing up for your futures, inspiring and enlisting others in their cause, and leading by example, and showing all of us that change is really possible. Starting community projects, being volunteers, and also dreaming of and fashioning excellent solutions that have been working. At UNICEF, we feel that it is our responsibility to make sure that your voices are heard, your solutions are taken into serious consideration. And as future architects, we believe that young people must be fully supported in your climate and clean energy actions to be our clean energy leaders of tomorrow. Now, moving ahead, we know that it is really important to engage young people through energy education, through skills training for a solid green energy workforce, especially now when the entire world, hopefully, or at least half the world, or maybe part of the world, is moving towards a net zero energy transition. And UNICEF is really committed to continue working with our young partners to lead the paradigm shift, to lead the clean energy paradigm shift in the sectors that are closest to you. In the past couple of years, along with our other partners, we have managed to reach successfully to almost 20 million children and young people with free climate change educational materials. And also in 2020 alone, we have been able to support young people from across 106 countries to influence climate policies. So we would really like to start building on these experience and leveraging on our innovative platforms and join hands with young people to really start, making that transformational change that that you have shown is possible. And some of them includes promoting seat for young people at the table or in climate and energy related policies and decision-making forums. Continue building and reinforcing strategic partnerships with young people, for example, with Youth Sustainable Energy Hub, and for example, in today's conference, as well as co-creating resources, educational and learning materials on clean energy and on climate change and environmental degradation. So, for example, on the top right hand of the screen, you can see various toolkits that we have come up and co-created, in fact, with young people. And this is in the Latin American and Caribbean region that UNICEF Latin American and Caribbean office has co-created with young people. So we would like to build on this to co-create a dedicated sustainable energy booklet for young people. The process has already started, and we plan to launch the booklet next year. But we would also love to hear from you in terms of what is really needed. What should be addressed as part of this booklet. And last but not the least, we would also be looking into providing skills training along with our partners like the International Renewable Energy Agency, particularly focusing on boots on the ground, on young people. So we would also love to hear on what are the specific requirements and your needs when it comes to green skills training, when it comes to renewable energy training, for example. So with this, I would like to stop, and I would really like to invite a dynamic and an interactive conversation. But before we do that, I just wanted to leave you with some of the knowledge products and publications on sustainable energy by UNICEF that you may want to refer to. For example, we came up with a recent case study on renewable energy in the health sector, in highlighting the benefits in the education sector, in the health sector, and water and sanitation in Malawi, which is this one. And you can see, how we have been trying to promote the role of young people in the implementation, on the ground. Also, the recent reports that came through as part of the high-level dialogue on energy, which wrapped up in last September, just a couple of weeks ago. We contributed to the report on enabling SDGs through inclusive and just transition. And on that report also, and across all of these reports, you can see that we have tried to really advocate for a specific place for young people and their participation, so that we can, be all hands on deck when it comes to promoting clean energy access and transition across several of these critical sectors. So with that, I would like to stop. Thank you so very much, Sergio.
Well, thanks a lot to you, Raksha. It was a very pleasant presentation. So right now we are going to start with some questions, as you said. Well, first I would like to ask you, um, how what should we do as people to get our governments to listen to us, to listen to our proposals or our ideas?
I think you're already doing it. For example, excuse me, I think you all have made it very clear, specifically, this year, and I think in the run up to the high level dialogue on energy in September, that the voice of young people really matters. We should be listening to young people very closely. The solutions that you bring to the table are really critical. They are innovative, they are contextualized to the local situation, and they work. So I think you all are doing it. What you need is the support, the reinforcement, and perhaps a little bit of, like some professional push, I would say. But working, more importantly, working hand in hand with all stakeholders. I think that is what is critical. So it's for the other side, the government, the state, and the non-state actors who should be really opening our ears and our minds to embrace the solutions that you're bringing, the voices that you're bringing to the table.
Okay, thanks a lot, Raksha. So another question is well, about climate financing. How do we get this financing, this climate finance? What advices can you give us as young people with some projects and ideas?
Thank you so much, Sergio, for the question. I think this is a very important conversation, and this is a discussion that we've been having also with our major funding partners. I mean, our bilateral, you may see that, like UNICEF's bilateral partners, of course, when they are contributing towards water and sanitation, towards health, towards education sector, more and more, there is there is this emphasis that we should be looking into climate resilience, into climate adaptation, and also moving to a net zero transition in these sectors. So in doing so, our bilateral partners are already making sure that children and young people are key beneficiaries and key participants in these sectors on climate finance. But I think what is more important is the multilateral climate funds that are there, the biggest of the global multilateral funds, like the Green Climate Funds, like the Global Environmental Facility and its vertical funds. They are the biggest of environmental and climate funds, multilateral, So I think it's very important for these funds to recognize that children, young people are crucial. They are crucial participants, they are critical beneficiaries, and there has to be a dedicated way of making sure that they are also the recipients and beneficiaries of climate finance. Because you may know that the Green Climate Fund so far does not have a specific recognition that like young people or children should be one of the primary beneficiaries of climate finance. And also on this, UNICEF is really making a lot of effort in raising the profile, in highlighting the case. So we will see. I mean, I think there are other partners like Save the Children who are also doing, commendable work on this. And I'm sure, there are several other partners who are doing the same thing. But I think like what young people have done in the recent couple of years, taking things on their own hands, being, advocating for themselves, for their futures. I think this is also very important that we all join hands to advocate for climate finance for children and for young people. Unfortunately, it's not happening, but we hope that, it will happen. What do you think? What are your recommendations for us? How can we elevate this cause?
Well, at least in my country, it's a bit complicated, but I think that this we had like this project inside my university where we went to college, well, to schools, especially last and well, senior year, yeah. And there people could simply just, well, we gave them some presentations about project management and also about environmental problems. So they put those two together and created their own projects to resolve an environmental problem. So it was a very good project. I mean, we had like very creative solutions. As you were saying, young people are crucial to this because they have like blowing ideas, you know, and they had like people projects of water treatment and water almacenation from the rain. It was amazing, you know. So I think that this kind of projects should go straight to some kind of science fair. I don't know, something like that. We don't have stuff like that in Bolivia, at least. But I believe that this kind of projects should go to a fair like that, you know, and maybe organized by the same UNICEF, by the UN, and people can go propose things that, like, look, I storage like 2 liters of water and from the rain, and that help a lot to my school because we didn't have water. 2 liters is not a lot, but it's a start, you know. So I believe that some kind of science fair, so something like that, could be like a good place to start, especially in schools. So thanks a lot for taking again our opinions. And well, I have other questions for you.
Thank you.
So Paulina asks, how will we know that energy transition will be fair for all? Is there dissemination material?
Very important question. And I think this is also something that we've been asking ourselves. How do we know? How do we measure? How do we monitor? Because without measuring, without monitoring the impact, it is very difficult to know. Of course, so far, we know that there have been similar, like reporting done. There have been like journal articles, scientific, journals which have reported and quantified the benefits of clean energy access and clean energy transition on children and on young people. But it is quite sparse and it is quite scattered. There have been some research back in 2004 by UNDESA, the Department for Economic and Social Commission, looking at the quantified benefits of energy access on the education sector. So I think by far that has been one of the most thorough sort of report. But also in 2017, Smart Village has come up with a report which tries to quantify. But and then you will find here and there scientific materials which have also come up with such evidence. But most importantly, what is really needed is that there should be a consistent and coherent measurement and monitoring and quantification of these benefits on young people and the sectors that are most important to them, like what I said, education, health, water and sanitation, nutrition, on jobs. That IRENA, the International Renewable Energy Agency, it has started tracking the what do they call it, the livelihoods, right? So or the job, the increase in job because of increase in renewable energy access, like globally. So those are already coming. At UNICEF, what we are trying to do is we are trying to now seriously look into the impacts and how we can monitor and quantify the benefits of clean energy program, of renewable energy program at UNICEF across our health programs, across our WASH programs, water and sanitation programs, and education. I know that you must have seen that there are a lot of anecdotal evidence, but those anecdotal evidence now need to be backed up by real data and by real evidence, which so far has been quite sparse and scattered. So I think once we start doing that, once we start once we start coming up with a methodology and really start, like monitoring it consistently, then we will be able to know that green energy access and transition has been really beneficial, or it hasn't been. I saw a recent article on Science Direct that suggested, to be honest, I need to go through the entire article first, but there were some snippets that I saw that there is no clear quantified benefits of energy access on education or on water access for children. So I'll be happy to share the link. But honestly, I haven't gone through the entire article. I just quickly saw actually a couple of days ago some of the snippets. So I've been intrigued by that article, by that journal, and I'll be looking forward to reading that also. Over. But if you guys have any, any ideas, if you want to propose any solutions, also we are very open to receiving those ideas and to see how we can implement that, like going forward in our programs as well. Over.
Well, thanks a lot, Rakshya. So in base of what you just said, I have like two questions. So the first is UNICEF has like a virtual library where we can access all these kind of documents, and also I mean, can I like have a project and send it to the UNICEF so they can check it out and stuff like that, or can you tell me that, please?
So we do have a virtual library, but unfortunately it is only internal. But if you want, I mean, we can, as part of the sustainable energy booklet, we can also start, building it up as part of the booklet and maybe have a separate section on resources. But these are available all over the internet. Like, of course, it takes time to do the search and to consolidate all of it. And if someone has already done it, then why reinvent the wheel again, right? So we can definitely, consider putting these resources up, and we will also be. UNICEF will have its climate, energy, environment website public very soon. Hopefully, we're in a testing phase right now, and hopefully we will be able to make that public. So hopefully those resources will also be available. Now, in terms of collaboration, it depends on what ideas we are talking about, right? Like, it really depends on the specific context, the countries, the operating environment that we're talking about. But again, when we will be engaging on the sustainable energy booklet, that is one platform where we can have conversations on what are the projects that you're thinking about, what are the ideas that we're thinking about, and then maybe as a next step we can take that forward as well. I mean, the long story short, at this moment, we do not have a platform where we are inviting and soliciting ideas on programs and projects externally. And, like we don't have that sort of an incubation platform to provide that support. But if this is a growing idea and a need, then that is something that we would definitely want to consider.
That's great, Rakshya. That's great. So I hope that this can go to the booklet, and that would be great. And well, I have another question for you. Adal Figuero asks, how do you imagine energy transition have to be in Latin America?
Thank you very much. I think Latin America is already doing quite great. I think the young people, kids in Latin America are already very inspiring. And as we have been seeing, for the past few days at this conference as well, and outside, as I mentioned, the sustainable energy booklet that we are developing is with our Latin America regional office, UNICEF Latin America regional office, simply because, there has been so much drive from young people and children, and so much of an inspiration that we get from them. So I think it's already quite promising, especially, and it's all relative, right? Like, especially in comparison to sub-Saharan Africa, for example, I think you guys are faring great. But of course, there are pockets, there are specific needs, especially in remote areas, especially in marginalized communities, vulnerable communities, where schools still don't have, reliable access to electricity, where vulnerable and marginalized children and young people still don't have access to reliable and clean sources of energy. So these are definitely some of the areas that now need, very dedicated laser focus to make sure that there is a clean energy transition happening, and also overall in the region, I think we need to make sure that energy access is there, fine, but now clean energy transition, right, moving towards the net zero ambition is what is more important. Over.
Yeah, that's very true. So advancing with another question of Adal, UNICEF is creating collaborative spaces for youth energy leaders.
Sorry, say again.
UNICEF is creating collaborative spaces for young energy leaders.
So this sustainable energy booklet that I was referring to, I would take that as one of our first platforms to kickstart this collaboration with young energy leaders. So and the idea, it actually germinated because of remember the booklets that I had showcased. I will also share the link to the booklets on our chat window. So it germinated from that, and these toolkits and booklets are for, I don't know if everyone can access this chat, but if not, Sergio, I request you to please circulate the material. And this is specifically for the Latin America region. It has, it's in different languages, and it has a whole host of toolkits on climate, for young climate activists, on climate change, on air pollution, on environmental degradation, you name it. So we wanted to, build on this to start engaging young people on sustainable energy issues as well. So this will give you a flavor on what we are talking about and what we are planning on the sustainable energy booklet. And when we were developing these booklets and also moving forward for the sustainable energy booklet, we would like to co-create it with you. So we would like to make it as consultative as possible. So on the sustainable energy booklet also, back in summer, we've had already one consultation with young people, but that was just, at the beginning of the concept stage. But now that we are moving full speed, we will be, launching these consultations maybe towards the end of this year, or definitely, early next year. So we would like to take this as a platform where we start, engaging with young energy leaders and young energy advocates.
Yeah, that sounds great. And also, well, due to COVID-19, we can't have many presential activities, but it would be great, here to, I don't know, a year maybe in the best scenario, in the best case scenario, maybe having a regional, a regional meeting with all the young leaders that want to participate, And
yeah, so that is exactly the idea. So when we have the sustainable energy booklet as part of the dissemination, we would like to plan, an event around it. So I think we can take that opportunity to also incorporate what you're suggesting, Sergio.
Yeah, because it will be great, having these huge events again, because it is quite special to know people from other countries and all that stuff, but I think it had another flavor doing it in a presential way, if you know what I mean. Anyway,
of course.
So I'll give you another question. What vulnerabilities do women face in terms of access to electricity?
Thank you. Thanks for the question. Very good question. In terms of vulnerabilities, and you'll have to tell me whether these vulnerabilities are also prevalent in your region or not. But typically in sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia, I come from South Asia. I'm from Nepal. So we have witnessed that traditionally it's girls and women who bear the biggest brunt of doing household chores, like from early on, right? Like even when we're very young, we are typically brought into the burden of most of the household chores lies on girl child rather than the boys. And what happens is it takes away their time to do their homeworks, to study. They are also burdened perhaps, to go and to walk long distances to collect water, to collect firewood, for example. So that all takes away their time from studying. And all these activities happens during broad daylight, because at night, especially in remote communities where they don't have reliable access to electricity, at when the dark, sets, then the activities also lessen. So it takes away the education time for girls. It takes away their school attendance, and more. So when there has been increased electricity rates in communities like these, we have noticed that the school attendance for girls have increased. Also, we have witnessed that girl students have more opportunity to complete their primary education when the electricity rates have gone up. And at homes and schools where there is access to clean and affordable energy, girls can then also have extended studying hours, for their homework, for example, right after sunset, because they can then continue studying after finishing their household chores. The other area is, I mentioned that girls are typically burdened to go out and start fetching, water, or walk long distances to collect firewood, for example. So if the families have access to clean drinking water, for example, if they have access to clean sources of fuel or affordable sources of fuel, then girls will not have to start walking long distances in the dark, and they are not, exposed to vulnerabilities to gender-based violence, for example. We've also seen reports coming in from schools, for example, where there is a poorly lit or an unlit school latrine. When girls go, they have been attacked, or they have been, there have been instances where they have faced gender-based violence. So with energy access, with power, these gender-based violence, the gender gaps really start, they start contributing to it. Of course, there are other factors as well, but electricity or energy access does help. And let's not forget, the impact of indoor air pollution on women and girls. They spend most of the times, indoors cooking, and that really exposes them to indoor air pollution also, especially because of unsustainable fuel sources such as charcoal or firewood or kerosene, for example. Over.
Yeah, I think that it's like a difficulty that many women still have, especially in these undeveloped countries, in Latin America and Africa, above all. This is like a story I would like to tell you. That I was talking to a friend the other day, and today it's really this friend is a little old, let's say. Today it's really common to see girls studying. Fortunately, it's really common. So in my career, there's a lot of girls. So talking to my friend the other day, he was telling me, so there are more women studying. It's like their capabilities have increased. And I was like, no, their capabilities haven't increased. They always have been this capable. It's just that they have more opportunities to study in these days. So I think it's part of everyone to correct these mistakes that people talk. These people can say sometime, and I think it's very important, the things you say. And in base of that, what do you think we should do as young people to let's say empower women?
Thank you very much, Sergio. And that's really thoughtful of you to ask that. I think first and foremost, it is important to have the realization that there could be discriminating factors for a boy and a girl in the same society, in the same school, or in the same home as well, right? So I think the awareness and the sensitization that comes with it, I think that is the most important place to start off with. Now, I mean, aside from, energy access, I think it's everyone's responsibility. It's a human right that, both boys and girls, that men and women, they should have equal opportunities. And there have been, instances where, maybe, again, depending on which situation, what circumstances are we talking about. But if it is a very, really marginalized, vulnerable communities, vulnerable, like sections of the society, I think we need to walk the extra way. We need to walk the extra mile to make sure that, there is dedicated, focused support for girls and for women, so that they have that opportunity. They can excel, like in the opportunities that they have. And once they settle in, then maybe, like gradually start rolling out. But first and foremost, I think going that extra mile could be very important, and providing that extra opportunity. Because I know that there are instances when we talk about, we talk about gender equality, gender equity all the time. So when it is an equally capable boy and an equally capable girl, so who should the opportunity go to, right? I think that's a very contentious conversation, but it all depends again upon, like the background, the socioeconomic, the background that we are talking about, the context, the specific context that we're talking about. And depending on that, I think there might be some chances, some opportunities where, giving that extra push to the girl child might be much more important and much more instrumental, I would say. But again, I think it totally depends on the opportunities, the context, etc. There are times when boys are much more discriminated than girls are. So in that context, I think, there has to be dedicated focus on the boys as well. So yeah.
Okay, thanks a lot, Raksha. It means a lot also, so we can leave behind all those ideas of the man being superior and all that stuff. I think it's time to just leave it behind and accept that we are all equal in many ways. So also I was wondering, well, it is quite important to let kids know how the world is going through a climate crisis and all. So I had a question on how should we teach kids, and how should we teach kids about climate change and all the crises that we are living today?
Thank you. I think education opens doors and windows, to the rest of the world. Again, awareness, and education can start as early as 2 years old, 3 years old. I think it can start as maybe even as early as a 15-month-old baby, or when they play, when they interact, So it can take different forms and different shapes, right? So I think making the resources, the learning materials in such a way that it adapts to the situation. And I think kids these days are learning a lot about climate change, about clean energy, right? Like a 3-year-old knows about a wind farm. A 3-year-old knows about a solar PV panel. I wouldn't say all of them, but of course, I think these are also in some privileged context. So it is very important for. That's why I think it's critical for formal education and informal education to incorporate climate change education, clean energy education as part, of the formal process now. So we have been seeing this happening in some countries. There have been some governments who have been very proactive and have taken, been champions in doing that. I think, for example, in Bolivia, right? I think the government has been, the policies have been towards, being very inclusive about, young people. I know UNICEF Bolivia office is doing a lot to make sure that children and young people are brought to the platform and their voices are heard. So I think it's a combination of all. But most importantly, I think the education sector, both and the curriculum, both formal and informal, it has to start embracing and mainstreaming and environment, climate change, as well as energy issues into it. So that is how I think we can start, and of course, children and young people should continue raising their voices, because I think that's the only way that policymakers, adults, and other stakeholders will start listening. And it is already happening. So I think that should continue. I think you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so that's a great answer, Raksha. Yeah, well, in Bolivia we have like a lot of platforms dedicated to young people and their opinion about climate change and all the ideas we should do. I just participated of a young people event, of young leader event, where we had like tables, and I participated of the energy table, and so we had like this a discussion, and we talked about how the energy is working in Bolivia, what can we do to improve it, energy transition and all that stuff. And I understood that the document that we created, it was going to go to the COP26 in the civil in the civil documents of the delegation. So I hope that happens. I really hope so, because we did a great job. I mean, we all the table. Yeah.
Excellent. Congratulations on that. I think that's a feat
thanks.
in itself. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I mean, we did a great job, because all the guys in the table, all the girls and boys, were amazing. All were really capable people. We had like more girls. That is something I like to say too, because more girls are participating in this, and that is encouraging, because, well, I believe that absolutely everything needs like that touch of the girls, you know. So well, there is like this participation of young people, fortunately. However, I think it's important to say that some of these organizations of the young people are also I'm not sure how to say it, but they are polarized, you know, by politics. So these groups, well, they are great in their bases, because in the bases you have like the young people that really don't care about politics, and they just want to do their part, they want to help and all that stuff. But and there is the guys on the top that are quite polarized for politics in some certain way for the government, and that somehow it's well, that sucks. Because every polarized vision is no good at all. So yeah, there's like that disadvantage in some organizations of young people. But I'm glad to say that we young people have chances to um, to participate. That is a beginning, we have to say.
Excellent.
And everything, yeah, and yeah, everything has a beginning. So we have to start somewhere. And well, I believe that I was just telling you about the project we did in my university. Well, traduced to English, it will be called environmental challenge. Let's say. Well, I believe that projects like that could be really good to improve or even encourage young people to do stuff for the planet. You know, in the beginning we used to have like this price of money. Of course, the money was for the implementation of the project, but I think we could have done better. Now, taking a look backwards, we should have done like a huge event where we show it to everyone, invited the UNICEF, the UN, like every possible member we could, and do something like that. So I think that maybe in the future we could like have these projects similar to environmental challenge, and unite like similars in all over Latin America and the Caribbean, or even all around the world and like sharing the ideas, improving the ideas. Some ideas might get even some financement, and then that financement can go to improve that project, and that project can be long life sustainable, and that would be great.
Very inspiring to hear. Yeah.
So well, anyway, um, well, I have like a question. So we young people have like you would you say that we young people have more responsibility in turn to the growing climate change, or should we do we have like a shared responsibility, or all the responsibility is on us, or what would you say?
No, I don't think children and young people should have the burden of the responsibility. I don't think we should be passing down the burden of having to act on climate change or on environmental degradation issues that adults haven't been able to fix. So it should not be that way. And I don't think, of course, I think in part young people have risen to the challenge also because adults haven't been able to address the challenge adequately. But I strongly believe that young people should not be burdened with the responsibility. It is a shared responsibility, but I think the proportion of the share should definitely not be higher on children and on young people of like walking the talk. But definitely it should be on the adults. When there is an interest, when there is an inspiring idea, and where there is a motivation, I think young people should be supported, but they should definitely not face the burden of having to sort out their future and these issues by themselves.
Yeah, I agree on that. However, well, I would like to tell you another things about this, and there is this what we call with some friends the climate anxiety. So actually we've been told that my generation and the generation right next of me, it's quite like fragile and all that stuff. Well, I was talking right to my parents the other day about that, and they were like, "Well, your generation has like a lot of issues, and they are so fragile, and they complain about everything." And well, what would you expect? I mean, we have like a climate crisis, a financial crisis, an environmental general crisis. So yeah, I think we have a lot to worry about, and it's quite common now to see an anxiety in young people, especially the people that are studying like this in environmental sciences and all that. And it's like that anxiety that gets into your brain, and sometimes it's hard to even like exist, knowing all that everything you do has a consequence and all that. So um, in the beginning of my career, like we say in my career that the first semesters are quite depressing, because if you heard a lot of things. I mean, you find out a lot of things. They tell you that we are in a climate crisis, that the situation is not good, and the teachers are really good in my university. I mean, they try to teach you like everything they know all the time, and they still try to encourage you to resolve the problem, because there is a lot of problems, but they try to encourage you. But the first semesters are quite of depressing, because you find out that there's a lot of things going on, and even you right now breathing has an effect on the planet, and that it's like shocking, shocking in the beginning. Well, later you transmit that to other people, and then those other people have this anxiety as well, and there is this huge phenomenon of climate anxiety. So well, there is that. And well, what advice could you give us, people that have climate anxiety, if you have any?
To be honest, this is the first time I'm hearing about climate anxiety, but when you described it, I totally resonate. I totally resonate because in my country, back home when I was growing up, so I was probably the first few, the pioneering badges to study environmental education. So my background is also environmental management for my undergrad degree. So I think it was probably one of the first few badges. And everyone would ask me, why are you doing environmental management or environmental sciences? What are you going to do with it? There's no opportunity. So especially, coming from South Asia, if you are expected that you would either become a doctor, an engineer, or a lawyer, probably, right? Like those three. So if you digress a little bit away from that, and if you get into, like these upcoming trend, like emerging stuff, so people would think that, oh, what is he or what is she going to do later in life? There's not going to be any professional career, like they're just wasting their time, basically. So those were the times I started my undergrad, and like you said, I think the first few semesters were completely gloom and doom, because I think we learned a lot about things that we hadn't really opened our eyes to. And at that time, of course, on climate change, environmental degradation was already a lot talked about, but climate change was not really, the awareness was not as much, of course, not as much as now. So I do completely resonate with what you say as a climate anxiety, but I hadn't heard of this word before this. I think it will pass away. I think with time it passes away, and I think the beauty with that is we also realize that there are solutions, that there are actions that we ourselves can catalyze, can stimulate, and how we can contribute, right, in terms of addressing the overall situation. I mean, even with climate change, even if we act now, of course, it still looks a little bit, the outlook looks a little bit bearish, but there is enough evidence to show that enough needs to happen to avert the climate crisis. But I think the beauty in all this is the fact that we know that we can make a difference, and we know that we have solutions in our mind that with which we can really bring about the change. But of course, alone we will not be able to do that, and we will need to have all hands on deck to be able to catalyze and stimulate that action. So I think I'm quite optimistic about the overall situation, and I take peace and in the fact knowing that we still can make a change, we still can make a difference. So I think that anxiety will slowly start maybe getting metamorphosized into something of an optimism, something of a solution seeking attitude, I would say. But it is I think it's completely natural, I guess. But sorry to hear that, that there is a climate anxiety amongst young people. I totally understand. I think you guys you're the first generation going through all these crises together, right? And on top of that, COVID, I mean, I don't think it has helped anyone except for young minds and young hearts like yourselves, So yeah, it's unfair.
Maybe just bad luck,
Yeah.
But well, I think it would be also an important or interesting point to abort in the booklet or in some kind of talk, like
I take
the
a note,
psychology. Yeah, like the psychology, that that involves all the climate change, like how the people feel about climate change and how that affects in their daily lives. Because well, for my thesis, I was also looking like, what are people worried about the climate change, or they aren't? So I googled a little about it, and there was like a polling that young people did, like people between the 20 and the 30s, and well, they basically said that they were worried about their mainly concerns were like the economics and the environmental crisis. So I believe that people is actually worried now, and that is a good thing. But beyond that, there is also a whole psychological phenomenon that there is this anxiety, to not knowing what is going to happen to us, what is going to happen to the planet, and what are we going to do. So yeah, I think it will be like an interesting point to know how the psychology behind all the climate change stuff.
No, I think it's very important point, and thanks for raising it and for recommending that we take a look at this and consider it as part of the SE toolkit, because I mean there have been research building up when it comes to mental health and climate change, right? So the association between mental health and climate change, I think there has been like building research, building evidence that's coming in through. So we have to take it seriously, like with all other, like mental health issues, with psychological issues. I think there has to be awareness, sensitization on this, and we have to start talking more and more about it, and start finding solutions on, like how we can address this, especially if it is really becoming a serious issue amongst, like children and young people. Then it's definitely not good. Yeah. So I think this is definitely something that needs to be taken seriously. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I mean, and besides that, well, maybe we are the generation with most problems in the background and the most fragile generation, as many people said, but I don't think so. But I believe we are also the generation that seeks most what they want. That they are my generation, that it's the one that wants to be fulfilled, that wants to get all their goals, that wants to their own well-being, because well, there is it maybe it's a common fashion, but today I know a lot of friends that have studied what they wanted, even if people tell them, no, there is no job for that. What are you going to do? For example, I have a friend that we always told him that he shouldn't study music. He wanted to study music. He has always been a great musician, and he wanted to study music. He wanted to live from that. And we always told him, no, you shouldn't study that. Now I see that we made a mistake. We should have encouraged him to study whatever he wants, because it's part of the well-being and part of being right, being well with yourself. So I think it's part of it comes from that, and well, something I wanted to say.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for highlighting that. Very important. And oftentimes when we talk about clean energy, like these technical discussions, we don't really talk about, psychological and mental health issues, right? So absolutely important.
Yeah. So, but I believe it's even important. But well, another questions for you. So, what results are expected from the 8 projects that are being carried out at this time?
Thank you. So those 8 projects, I believe you were referring to the some of the projects and programs that I showcased on my slide. Those are only to give you a flavor, an example of what we have been doing on the ground. We have quite a few in addition to what I showcased. I mean, our primary objective is to have positive results for children and for young people through those programs. So be it energy access program in the health sector, be it energy access, solar pumping program in the water sector, our first and foremost goal is to accelerate the achievement of sustainable development goals in each of these sectors for children and for young people. So essentially seeing positive benefits, for example, how many, the number of children and young people having access to safe and clean drinking water, and how did they access in areas where they don't have access to electricity, for example, the grid, solar, decentralized solar solutions come in really handy to access the water, right? So that the communities don't have to use hand pumps, to access water. And once they have water supply, then how do they purify it? So if they have access to reliable energy sources, then they can also purify the water so that the water to children and to communities is safe and clean for drinking. And similarly, in healthcare facilities where when they have access to electricity, it's, for example, there have been so many reports that we hear from our countries that especially in remote areas or underserved areas where they don't have reliable electricity connection, or those like healthcare facilities which are not at all connected to the grid, how are children cared for? Even in district hospitals in some countries, there is always like power outage, right? The power outage is so consistent that once there is a power outage, typically in district hospitals, the diesel generators should kick in to provide the alternate power. But these hospitals are cash strapped or cash crunched because they are public hospitals, and they don't have diesel. So they have to, let's say, compromise whether the DG set will provide electricity for operation or surgery, or they will provide electricity to the neonatal or special childcare unit. So every time there is a power outage, there have been reports coming in from neonatal childcare units or special childcare units that there have been deaths of children who have been on ventilators or who have been on oxygen support, for example. So these are some of the ways that UNICEF really ensures that the programs that we have through renewable energy, through decentralized solar solutions, really make an impact directly to the survival of children, to their well-being, to their health, to their education.
Okay, thanks a lot. Well, that is very concerning, I can't imagine a hospital without energy. That is, wow.
It is rampant. It is rampant.
Yeah.
I mentioned, right, in my slide that 1 billion population around the world, they go to hospitals, healthcare centers without any electricity. Now let's imagine, how do they perform their surgeries? How do they perform deliveries, and especially during COVID, no ventilators, oxygen cylinders, they need energy, to the oxygenators to be deployed. In special baby care units or neonatal units, without electricity, babies are dying, so it's really a sad situation.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you about that a moment ago, but I forgot completely. And how did these people do with COVID-19, with all the team of the breeders and the same special care units that you were mentioning? And well, I mean, I was kind of imagining the everyday hospital where how can actually work without energy. And well, worst in this case of COVID-19, how did they do it? How was it?
I think it has been quite a bad situation, and I think I wouldn't call it lucky, but maybe a little bit of a silver lining is that during the peak of the COVID-19 situation, when most of the developed countries were going through the really like high peak COVID times, several of the developing world and low income countries somehow had been spared of that massive outbreak. So I think that was a little bit of a silver lining, but overall, in terms of the impact of COVID and the impact of lack of energy, reliable energy access in healthcare facilities, in district hospitals, even in national hospitals, it hasn't been accounted for. So I think the data is still coming in. We do hear anecdotal evidence like the ones that I mentioned about, from childcare, special childcare, baby care units. But I think there has to be, like a more comprehensive evaluation done to figure that out. But other than that, we haven't. What we know is that when there is a power outage, with these cash-strapped public hospitals don't have even like operating budget to buy diesel, and then whatever little diesel they have, then they have to either operate the surgery rooms, the operation theater, or they have to, when the operation theater is not working, then they have to then go back to their lab to do the blood test and diagnostic. So it's a constant like compromise on which unit will run first, when there is electricity or when there is diesel power. So it's really a tricky situation. And how do they get, how have they been surviving? I think overall they've been surviving also through maybe funding partners, bilateral donors, but it's just piecemeal and it's just ad hoc and it's really not sustainable this way. So I think there has to be really a long-term, consistent solution that needs to be found. But it's unimaginable out there, really.
I can only imagine, but well, so even in the hospitals where PV panels have been planted, I imagine that the rest of the night, because well, you don't have sun during night, they have to use, as you said, like generations through diesel. But has there been any PV system that works through batteries, maybe?
Yeah, so of course, so batteries, I think at nighttime, battery storage is really important. And I think we cannot, I cannot emphasize enough on how much storage is important for these, like healthcare facilities, for example, so that they can continue providing emergency services and like delivery services at nighttime, like maternity ward and delivery services at night. Having said that, maybe the entire hospital does not need constant, like source of or I wouldn't say that. I think just to retract, I think at nighttime, maybe some of the facilities can be prioritized, but it is absolutely important to have battery storage. And now with like this technology, with science, lithium-ion batteries, with battery technology really advancing, it is really getting promising. Of course, the cost is still a barrier because batteries, as you know, is still so. The costs have reduced dramatically, right? But they are still so expensive, especially for public institutions. I think what needs to be done is the cost needs to be and the benefit needs to be taken care of on a long-term basis, because it should not be only taken, the cost should not be taken off only like for a year. For example, for solar, the upfront installation cost is high, the battery costs are high, but operating costs are virtually non-existent other than the operation and maintenance cost and part replacement. But it's not the same with diesel. For diesel, maybe the installation cost is a little bit cheaper than solar, but then every year, the recurring cost really adds up. So I think governments and public institutions should really start looking at the life cycle cost and add to it, the implication on health, the implication on climate, the implication on environmental degradation. I think those socio-economic costs should also be built into diesel generators when the decisions are being taken, really.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I also would like to give you like a bigger picture in Bolivia, where in Bolivia we have like this problem where it's really uncommon compared to other countries, where solar energy is expensive than the normal energy generated through natural gas. Because in Bolivia we have like the government has like a deal, let's just say so, where all fossil fuels are more are cheaper. Yeah, so there is like this problem, and I was just thinking about all the things you were saying, and actually in Bolivia we have like this problem, and I think it's all over the world, where when you install batteries in a PV system, you have like the cost is the double. So you have like this problem, and also it wouldn't be like so like, how can I say it, like benefit, there wouldn't be like so much benefit installing many in some places here in Bolivia, because the cost is higher, and that is also a disadvantage in at the moment of installing like this energy transition systems all over in these places where they don't have access to energy, so where there is another disadvantage and something we need to take care of.
Yeah, that's a very interesting insight.
Yeah, and I believe that many countries must have that same problem as well. That they have like a subside to some fuels, and that is well, that is a disadvantage at the moment of energy transition. But well, anyway,
Absolutely.
I have like a final question maybe for you. Well, some
Sure.
of the final questions, we have like 5 minutes.
Okay.
So what results are expected from the 8 projects that are being carried out at this time?
So I think we discussed about that, right? Like just a while ago. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I discard that question. So yeah, it is very shocking that we have 10 years to reduce, well, now less than 10 years to reduce global emissions to avoid the worst impacts. What are these impacts and the worst case scenario?
Oh God, I think, like now I'm getting that climate anxiety, right? So,
Yeah.
Thank you very much for this question. I think it's very clear from the IPCC report that came up a couple of months ago in terms of, like what are these worst impacts? If you've gone through the IPCC report, the recent one, it had different scenarios, right? And the worst case scenario is really scary, like with all the magnitude of the impact really increasing. I wouldn't want to, because we have only a couple minutes left. I wouldn't want to go into each and every of these impacts, but they do look quite bad. But again, having said that, I'm cautiously optimistic, and I really believe, in the advancement that science has made, that innovations has made, and in the power of, advocacy and having all hands on decks to collaborate and to be working together. So I really want to take the optimistic scenario and to see that what we can do and how we can contribute.
Yeah, well, optimistic scenario sounds great given the circumstances. Yeah. So well, we have like 2 minutes left, and well, maybe to finish, I would like to, well, maybe if you want to give a message to the people that are watching us, and well, maybe we were talking about the booklet all in all the presentation. So maybe how can people get involved in the booklet if they can?
So I think, it's we would look up to you, to get the recommendation on how we can engage with you when the time is right, in terms of when we open up the consultations for the booklet. So please do get in touch. Either you have your own sort of a group or hub. And we would really love to see, how you would want to be engaged, and please do contact us. Of course, you also have access to our Latin America regional office, UNICEF Latin America regional office. So feel free to reach out to colleagues there, the climate change colleagues there, or feel free to reach out directly to me with some suggestion on how we can kick off the consultation process with you and start engaging with you. So we're very open at this point.
Great. Thanks a lot, Rakshya. It's been an amazing talk. I think we discussed a lot of things. Well, I just hope that it has been really, well, at least for me, it has been really constructive and inspirative as well. So, well, thank you a lot, Rakshya. You were really like, as I told you, I'm kind of a fan of your work, because you do like the things I want to do in some years. So it's been really constructive, Rakshya. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so very much, Sergio, and thank you to all the organizers and all the participants. It has been an absolutely amazing chat, and I wish we could make it more interactive, but by seeing people and being in the same place and platform. So I hope next year, with COVID diminishing, we will be able to meet up in person and have a more interactive face-to-face conversation. But thank you so much. I've learned a lot from you guys today, and it has been an absolutely productive afternoon for me. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Raksha. Thanks everyone who has been watching, and we're going to close this room. It has been really constructive once again, and don't you miss the other events we have in this day. And tomorrow we have the last day of classes, so you can't miss it.
All right, thank you. Looking forward to the other sessions.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Sergio.
Raksha.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.